Guess I should move the mic up. Hello, everyone. Jax West from Stephen Avery Project, Justice with Jax, and MAM Gossip. We're live today because October 2nd is known as Wrongful Conviction Day. So I felt it was important that we go live today due to, obviously, Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey are wrongfully convicted, as well as countless others. Thing we're always asked about for Stephen's case, hello Kayla, is what's going on with Stephen's case. Why no updates? Because there's nothing to report. Hello, Bryce. There's nothing to report on Stephen's case currently. We are waiting for the court's response, and there's no deadline for that. They can take as long as they'd like. Hello, Kitty. And also, this being the time of COVID, and the court gets backlogged on things because they're doing things by Zoom and whatnot. So there's nothing to report on Stephen's case. And hello, Benjamin and Robertson. So, and now I'm just going to start saying hello to everybody because there's so many people saying hello right now. So hello around the world. So there's nothing new in Stephen's case. As soon as we get that, we go live and read you whatever the report is, whatever the filing is. But this is what happens in our judicial system here in the States, that everything takes way too long. So we do go months and months without there being anything new to report on Stephen's case. But, there's always that glimmer of hope. Oh, and I just got an email from Melissa Kaluzinski. There's always a glimmer of hope in Stephen's case. He's got one of, if not the best lawyer when you're fighting a wrongful conviction. Kathleen has freed 20 people, right? That's where her number is at. So there's always hope for Stephen, as well as we have an election, and we're not going to start talking politics, but we have an election coming up here in the States in 33 or 32 days. And who knows what could happen in Wisconsin if new people elected. Will that mean something new in Stephen or Brendan's cases? Brendan's case is tougher, and it's due to his wrongful confession, his forced confession. Anybody with a brain can see. Oh, thank you, Mark, on the glasses. I just noticed that. And anybody with a brain can see that Brendan was coerced into confessing. Because here's the order of events there, right? They questioned Brendan on February 27th. They didn't question him on the 28th. On the 28th is when they allegedly found the alleged bullet in the garage. Prior to that, there was nothing in the narrative that Teresa Halbach had been shot. So they needed to get Brendan back in there because they needed Brendan to say she was shot. And they're trying to get him. What'd you do to her head, Brendan? Punched her? What else? Cut her hair? What else? Be honest. Cut her throat? I'm just going to come out and say it. Who shot her in the head? They should have blown the case right there. Because to that point, Brendan had never said anything about a gun, Teresa being shot, any of that. They again put that into Brendan's head for Brendan to parrot it back. When he's with Michael Kelly and has to fill out that paperwork, first thing is check one of these two boxes. I'm sorry for what I did, or I'm not sorry for what I did. Nothing in there about I'm innocent. And Michael Kelly worked for Brendan. But all he wanted to do was to prove Brendan did it. Then he wants Brendan to draw things. Michael Kelly told him what to draw. Now put this over here in this corner and do this. Everything was coerced. Including, he wants to show Brendan these pictures. And we've seen it in Making a Murderer too, of the blue ribbons that were put up for Teresa because her favorite color was blue. And these blue ribbons were up by her church. It was Michael Kelly who put those ribbons up and then took the pictures of them, all to manipulate Brendan. But Brendan confessed. Stephen has always maintained his innocence. Always. So, while there are slight options for Brendan, he's pretty much done. And I'm not trying to be negative. That's just the way it is. Unless Kathleen Zellner is able to prove something in Stephen's case. But Kathleen just getting Stephen freed, it depends on how she does it, does not mean that Brendan gets to go free as well. Look at Kathleen Zellner's other case, Ryan Ferguson, Dream Killer. She was able to free Ryan Ferguson, and Charlie, who is the one that dreamed that he and Ryan Ferguson did it, and therefore he also confessed to it, and then later recants it, is still in prison. So, you really need proof of who really committed this crime. I am not somebody who's a wacky conspiracy theorist. I mean, you may say that, people may think by the things I say that maybe I'm that way. But there is no concrete proof to me that Teresa Halbach is even dead. Now, do I believe she is dead? Yes. Sorry, I meant to turn the sound off my phone so that wouldn't go off. I believe she is dead. Because she hasn't been seen since that day, right? So I believe she is dead. There has been no proof that the bones that were recovered or planted, or however you want to describe those bones, are even Teresa Halbach's. So, can I say that Teresa Halbach was raped? No, there's no proof of or evidence that Teresa Halbach was raped. All we have is that She has not been seen, allegedly, since that day. So, where does the evidence go? Real evidence. Not fake, planted evidence. For me, it goes to Bobby Dassey and Scott Toddock. What they exactly did to her, I don't know. I have always believed that Bobby got Teresa to stop by saying he wanted a hustle shot. How exactly that happened, I don't know. Thank you, Christopher, because I can't read all your comments, and Christopher is one of our moderators here, and apparently somebody was causing a problem. And so Christopher has now handled it. Is Cuss Road involved? Was she buried temporarily by the deer camp? I don't know. To me, the evidence points at Bobby Dassey. Bobby Dassey has lied. Scott Toddock has lied. They just happen to see each other. Oh, we're crossing paths here, so we know the exact time. Bobby has told his mother, and his mother has posted on Facebook that Bobby saw Teresa Halbach leave. So he has changed the story. Did you see her leave? Did you not see her leave? Bobby, it was his computer that had all that disgusting stuff on it. Stephen has said that Bobby always took notice of every time Teresa Halbach had been to the salvage yard previously. Why is he paying attention to when Teresa Halbach's there? Why is he searching on the computer, murdering women, raping women, looking up Teresa Halbach? Why does he refuse to talk to Kathleen Zellner? There is absolutely no motive for Stephen Avery to have committed this crime. Just because once upon a time he was with a bunch of guys, drunken idiots, and they poured gasoline on a cat and threw it into the fire, which it wasn't Stephen who did it, but Stephen took the blame for it. But he was there, and not cool. I don't like it. There's no defense of that. But just because that happened, it doesn't mean he's going to kill some random girl. Just because his cousin, Sandra Morris, is going around town and saying horrible things about Stephen, and then Stephen does the stupid thing again of chasing her down and pointing an unloaded gun at her. Again, not cool. Not saying Stephen is a saint, but that does not equal murdering some random girl. Then when Sandra Morris and her friend are able to convince Penny Bernstein that the person who attempted to rape her sounds just like Stephen Avery, and Jean Couché, or however you say his name, the pencil, drew Stephen's mugshot to be what when Penny is describing her assaulter, and everything was doctored to take Stephen down because Sandy Morris is married to a cop, best friends with a cop. Stephen served 18 years for an attempted rape he did not do. Sure. Is that going to make somebody angry? Sure could. Yeah. So why would Stephen, 2 years later, after being free, been out for 2 years, he's now famous in his area. You know, he's testifying for the Avery bill. Depositions had just begun in his $36 million lawsuit. He was also going to be getting money tax-free from the state for his wrongful conviction. That's besides the $36 million that he was going to be getting in the next 2 months. He had a girlfriend whom he loved. He calls Auto Trader to schedule this photo, even though he had Teresa Halbach's cell phone. He says the name B. Yonda because it's his sister's car, and that's who the title's in. So that's not him trying to hide. And so then he's going to murder this random girl in the middle of a work day at a working business. For what reason? When I see Debbie saying, didn't he say the world owed him a free kill? I do not know. And if he had a free kill, would it be some random girl? When all these people put him in prison. Really? He's just going to go after some random girl in the middle of the workday that he's called and made the appointment for her to be there. His family all knows she's going to be there. Barb had told her kids to clean the van out for the picture. Auto Trader knew she was going to be there. She was not afraid to go there. That's another, you can't listen to what the state is going to cook up because they're trying to push their narrative. Ken Kratz told that disgusting story of Brendan doing this, the rape and all this stuff. I am convinced it's like his secret fantasy or something he has done since he's the sexter, his little sexting finger. There's absolutely no reason for Stephen to have committed this, nor is there any proof. His trailer, teeny tiny. Stephen, not the cleanest person in the world. No evidence Teresa Halbach was ever in his trailer. No evidence that Brendan Dassey was ever in his trailer. After how many searches? Oh, they now find a key in there. Who finds the key? The same people who are part of putting him away for 18 years for an attempted rape he did not do. Why are they there? The guy from Calumet County who was overseeing them has talked about he's looking the other way. He wasn't looking at them at all times when this key miraculously pops out of this bookcase. After this teeny tiny trailer had been searched, how many times? Key, suspect. Bones. First of all, why do you keep the coroner off the scene? Why is the coroner, this is her crime scene, not allowed on the property? Oh, is it because there was a prior case involving illegal activity by the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department, and she was told what to say and she refused? So it was known that the coroner isn't going to cover up for corrupt cops, or sheriffs, I should say. Always need to make sure that it was the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department, not the police department. Two different entities. So these bones, oh, they don't take any pictures of them. How many of you watch crime shows? Allegedly true crime or recreated, whatever. They put their little yellow numbers down and they take pictures of everything before you move it. They claim they weren't able to take pictures because Stephen's German Shepherd bear was chained up near there and they couldn't get near it. Huh? At some point you do get near it because you do collect it. So why didn't you take pictures first? And then you have the people in the lab, like Sherry Culhane, who was part of when Stephen served 18 years for an attempted rape he didn't do. Sherry Culhane knew that DNA from the Penny Bernstein case wasn't Stephen's, and she did nothing about it for an entire year. Stephen served an extra year because they were keeping him in there as long as they could. And now she's involved in this case too. And then that brings us to the magic bullet. They searched that garage how many times? Oh, now they find this magic bullet. Doesn't have any blood on it that they're claiming went through her head. So there's no blood. But there is a waxy substance on it. And for some reason, when they went to Teresa Halbach's home and gathered evidence from there, they brought it to the salvage yard. So they brought her chapstick to the salvage yard, along with dirty underwear, a vibrator, a toothbrush. So a waxy substance is on the bullet. Could it have been the chapstick they brought from Teresa's house? And there's no blood on it. Why is there no blood on it? And there's dust everywhere. But there's no dust on the bullet. And this alleged crime happened in Halloween, on Halloween. And the bullet is found the next February, end of February. Months that bullet had been sitting there. Didn't get any dust. And then when Culhane is testing evidence, she contaminates it. All this should be tossed. Everything they have allegedly on Stephen has all been tainted. Is reasonable doubt. You have the person who owned the gun that Stephen is accused of using, the Glen Marshall or whatever it is called rifle, that was hanging above Stephen's bed. What you need to remember is the trailer that Stephen lived on was not Avery's. That was the trailer, the land it's on, the garage, the land that's on, does not belong to the Avery family. Alan Avery had sold it to his friend, Raleigh Johnson. Almost everything in the trailer was owned by Raleigh Johnson. When, what's her face? What's the dumb girlfriend's name at the time? I'm blanking on her name right now, which is a good thing. I'm seeing her stupid face in my mind, though. But when she moved in, she brought a bed and a computer desk. Everything else in there is Raleigh's. So there was a gun that's hanging over the bed. Raleigh's gun. Raleigh testified that he was at the salvage yard all the time shooting at critters. Shooting right at his garage because there was something that had, would come up right there. So, Jody, there you go. Thank you, Debbie. And thank you, Lynn. So, Raleigh said he shot that gun all over the place there. And so it very likely, if they happen to find something real, it would be from him shooting it. Now, this is a thing that people always forget, and I do as well. This is what they took Stephen into custody for. He is a felon due to prior, not the Penny Bernstein, due to before that. Which was it? Somebody, maybe Lynn will remember. Is it the cat or was it the it's pointing the gun at his cousin, right? That's why he's a felon. And so due to being a felon, he's not allowed to have guns in his possession. So that's what they took him into custody for, is that rifle hanging over his bed. And so Stephen would be doing time. Even, so if there was no Teresa Halbach, whatever, Stephen would be in prison. And that's just because that just happens. Them's the rules. You can't have a gun as a felon. We can argue all of that, but that's inaccurate. But they have nothing on him for Teresa Halbach. Jackie, okay, so because I think I'm going to guess Christopher pins comments occasionally so I can see things. The bones have been tested. But they don't come back as this is Teresa Halbach. It came back as it's consistent with the female side of Teresa's mother's line. So it's not saying it's 100% Teresa Halbach. And yes, Lynn, the law enforcement is sitting on the bed when they were searching the trailer where they're claiming Teresa Halbach had been shackled with pink fuzzy handcuffs and raped by two people. Well, depends on which case you're going to talk about too there. In Brendan's case, both Stephen and Brendan raped her. In Stephen's case, there's no Brendan in Stephen's case. So, was she raped once? Was she raped twice? Haircut, throat slit, stabbed in the stomach, and then carried out. So there would be bodily fluids all over that bed. And a cop just sits on the bed, hanging out. I mean, these really are like the three stooges of law enforcement. So the next weekend, Stephen goes to Crivets. His family goes to Crivets all the time. They've got a whole bunch of property up there, and they all have their own little homes on this property up there. So how does that make any sense if he's killed this girl and parked the vehicle in such a way on their property that would stick out like a sore thumb? Because yes, it's a junkyard, but the junkyard has its own organization of all these kinds of cars are parked here and all these kinds of cars are here, so they can know where stuff is when they're telling customers, here's where you go to go look for such and such. So you have this weird color car double parked going the opposite direction, and you throw a couple of things on top of it, unlike anything else there, that really makes it stand out. When there's a car crusher not far from there, and it is parked behind a pond that is deep enough that had you wanted to, you could completely submerge the car under there that nobody would see the car. And then you've got the quarry right behind there that has all these kinds of trees and such all over. You could literally pull the car right underneath a big evergreen tree and nobody would see the car there. So if you're going to say that he couldn't crush it right then because people are all around and could get suspicious on Stephen crushing a car, well, hey, my whole family's going to Crivets this weekend. I'll stay here and do it then when they're gone. No, he leaves. He's not on the run. He goes to the family home up north. Is that what somebody does when you've murdered somebody and you still have evidence to cover up? Why would you take the license plate off and then put it in another car closer to the residence? That doesn't make any sense. Then you've got the blood that's found. Well, wait. Let's first get to Teresa's family doesn't even know she's missing until her boss from the photo place photography studio, calls and says she hasn't reported to work. So that's when the family then discovers she's missing, even though she lives in the house right next door to the parents, and she has a roommate who she has sex with. And he allegedly doesn't notice that she's gone for days. Okay. So they report her missing. And her ex-boyfriend is able to come up with her login and password to get into her cell phone. And somebody deletes some of the messages from her cell phone. They organize a search party. And Pam Sturm arrives late. Most of the searchers are gone. So where is she assigned to go? Salvage yard, one of the places that Teresa was last seen. Why is that not already been assigned? Why does it go to her who's late? Why is she given a camera and a phone number to call the sheriff directly that nobody else in the search party gets? Then she and her daughter go to the salvage yard, and they're able to find that vehicle in, how long was it? 20 minutes? I'm really bad with numbers. Not even 20 minutes? I have been to the salvage yard. I walked the path. I know it's not possible for her to find the car that quick in that spot unless somebody told her where to go. It makes absolutely no sense that you're searching where there's all these cars, and they said they were scared. Okay? And they said they were also looking for her body. So why would you walk past all these cars and not search them and go from here all the way to over here, behind trees, behind a pond, to find this one little road and go there first? That doesn't make any sense. You were told where to go. Then Pam Sturm claims to have been a private eye. Yet she doesn't know where the VIN is in the car. How many of you are not a private eye but know where the VIN is in the car? And then asking if she can go in it. Huh? You're thinking you have found a crime scene? And you're asking if you can touch it, but you're a private eye. And you're related to Teresa Halbach. You also have couple somebodies saw Teresa's car parked by a dam. Somebody goes to the Cenex gas station, and Andy Colborn was there. And at that Cenex station is where there was a missing picture of Teresa Halbach. And it also showed the car. The guy tells Colborn, I saw that car at the dam, which is like 5 minutes from where they were. This person also texts Scott Toddick tells him he's seen the car. Scott Toddock doesn't tell anyone. Why? Why wouldn't you tell anybody that this guy said he saw Teresa Halbach's car? Sorry, my dentist is calling me now. um, then you have when law enforcement takes custody of the salvage yard. They kick the Avery family out. Dolores isn't even allowed to get her medication. Yet when you look at the logs of who was in and out of the crime scene, you will see Teresa's ex-boyfriend, Ryan Hilgas, her roommate that she also has sex with, Scott Blodorn, and her brother, Mike Halbach. Sometimes signing in and not signing out, or vice versa. Why are these people going in and out of a crime scene? Why are they there? Why, as I saw what had been posted before, was Ryan Hilgas's phone pings off of the cell tower over there. Why does Bobby Dassey's cell phone ping the opposite direction from where he said he went that day? As Kitty brings up the jury, why are there two people on the jury affiliated with Manitowoc Sheriff's Department? Why is Carl Wardman on the jury? Why is he even allowed in the jury pool? I get that judge or lawyers only have X amount of strikes. This guy should not even be allowed in the pool. When you look at a picture of Stephen Avery, I think it's the picture that Kathleen Zellner has on her website for when you click on her page of all the Stephen Avery stuff. It is a picture of Stephen in the orange jumpsuit. His hands are cuffed in front of him. He's got a female deputy on one side of him and a male on the other. That's a Wardman. His father is on the Stevens jury. So not only does he have that connection to the Manitowoc Sheriff's Department, he's also a community service officer for the Manitowoc Sheriff's Department and drives around a car writing parking tickets or whatever else a community service officer does. How is that man on the jury? Another juror is married to a deputy. There was no way Stephen would be found innocent. They doctored all the evidence and they planted two people on his jury. So the best Stephen could have hoped for was a hung jury. But then that's why you have a jury that convicts him on the murder, but not with mutilating the body. So the jurors are trying to send a message of going, look, something's not right here. Mistrial, something. They didn't have the guts to stand up to the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department. Can you really blame them? Look at what they've done to Stephen. They've stolen most of his life. What would happen to them? Look what happened to the coroner. Lost her job. There's just nothing that proves Stephen Avery did anything to Teresa Halbach. Look at his phone records. Listen to his calls with Jody. We've listened to him. That's not the voice of a man who is currently stoking a body in the fire. When Jody calls him 2 different times that he's allegedly burning a body. Why are there bones at the gravel pit? Not talking about the quarry. You have the quarry, so the Verdant quarry, and then the Manitowoc gravel pit. Why are Teresa's alleged bones all the way at the gravel pit? That at trial, Kratz said, these aren't the bones you're looking for. We're not going to talk about those bones. We don't even know if they're human. But then years later, they give those bones to the Halbach family and have them delivered to the funeral home. Why? If those are not Teresa's bones, as Kratz testified to in court, why are they going to the Halbach family? That is also breaking a law of evidence has to remain in evidence as long as somebody is in custody, because testing changes all the time. So unless you get Stephen's permission to give away evidence in his trial, you can't just hand over alleged bones. Why are they keeping the vehicle away from Kathleen Zellner? Why can't Kathleen Zellner test that RAV4? Why are there fingerprints on that vehicle that they know aren't Stephen's and they know they're not Brendan's? So they don't care about it. Why is there blood on the dash? They're saying it's from his finger. That still, somebody show me, how does your finger ever touch the dashboard like that behind where you put the keys in? You don't touch there. How are there not bloody fingerprints and all over the car if there's blood there? He was wearing gloves, so there's no fingerprints, but then how is there blood there? Which is it? He had gloves on? He didn't have gloves on. Oh, but his sweat DNA. No such thing as sweat DNA. Yes, DNA can transfer from your hand to something else from the sweat on your hands, but it's not sweat DNA, as Kratz testified to. Also, we know that there was a lab technician who was searching Stephen's Grand Am and then went to the RAV4 and forgot to change his gloves. Transference. So even if you're going to say there is Stephen DNA, it was put there. It's just a matter of, was it intentional or accidental? Zero evidence that Stephen did this. Teresa asks, why are the Halbachs silent? I defend the Halbachs to an extent. You never know how somebody is raised, right? So when people want to talk about, you never see like Teresa's mom cry. Well, she might have been raised, you don't cry. You don't show anybody a weakness. So The only thing I can blame them for is when they'll say things like they don't watch Making a Murderer, they don't follow any of this. If it's my family member, I want to know every piece of the evidence, and I'm not going to just listen to what the cops say, especially know when you know that same sheriff's department put Stephen away for 18 years for something he didn't do. Wouldn't it make you pause for just a second before just believing anything they say? Which is another reason I have an issue with Penny Bernstein. Because as soon as Stephen was accused for this, she jumped on the bandwagon that he was guilty after she knows she helped put him away for something he didn't do. You would think if anybody would know better than to just automatically believe what Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department is saying, it would be her. Because by her wrongfully pointing the finger at Stephen Avery, it caused other women to get raped. And now, in the Teresa Halbach case, what has happened possibly to other people? That whoever did whatever to Teresa Halbach is still out there. That's what I'm concerned about with the family, that they don't seem to really want to look at the evidence. I know guilters will say that we're just convinced by this biased show. So not true. I have read everything. And I'm not talking about stupid books. I'm talking about the actual evidence. I have read the court documents, all of it. Stephen's not my family. I have nothing to be gained by saying Stephen is innocent. I get nothing out of it. Actually, I've gotten a whole lot of misery over my years advocating for the innocence of Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey. If I found evidence that said Stephen was guilty, I absolutely would say it. It doesn't matter to me one way or the other. But I'm going to follow where the evidence goes. And the evidence shows me that Stephen Avery is innocent. Brendan Dassey is innocent. Can you imagine Brendan Dassey raping a girl and with his uncle watching? Do you think the kid could even get an erection in that kind of situation? Do you think that Brendan wouldn't be racked with so much guilt that it would have eaten him alive all these years if he had actually raped and murdered some woman? They got to my head. They led Brendan to say he was guilty. It really is a travesty. And the thing to be learned from this case is you are to never talk to police without an attorney present. I would have prior to Making a Murderer. I would think if I asked for an attorney, it makes me look guilty. So you're not gonna say attorney because it's just gonna look bad for you. You just don't ever know what narrative law enforcement is going to push. So That's the bottom line. Get an attorney. And then in Brendan's case, if you can't afford one will be appointed. That person works for the state. You're not going to... I shouldn't say that, because there are good people in the world. I know it's hard, but there are good people in the world who want to be like a public defender to help people like that can't afford, the big attorneys. But look at what Len Kaczynski and Michael O'Kelly did to Brendan. So you're stuck having to pay for an attorney, but it's worth it. So if you have any way to, borrow money, family member, whatever you got to do, but you need to get yourself a real attorney. It's so sad to me, because both of these men, and they are men, Brendan is in his 30s now. They've lost their adult lives. Stephen was first taken into custody when he was just 22 years old, and then was only free for 2 years. So he's never really gotten to live as a free man. Brendan was taken when he was 16. They have never been free men. They're both in prison for something they didn't do, that there is no solid proof that put them there. And they're not the only ones. There are so many people in prison. False confessions, doctored evidence, false witnesses. And today is Wrongful Conviction Day, for us to remember and think about all those in prison. And that brings us to an end for this video today. We will be doing other lives in the next month, because October we have Brendan's birthday, and then there's also Melissa Kaluzinski's birthday. Melissa Kaluzinski is another client of Kathleen Zellner, who is in prison for a murder she didn't commit. So we will be discussing Brendan more in depth for his birthday, on his birthday, and Melissa's case on her birthday. Christopher has already made events for them, so you can find those on get the times and the dates for when we'll do those lives. I also do lives in our subgroup called MAM Gossip. MAM stands for Making a Murderer, for those that don't know. We have been covering in there these jail calls from when Brendan was in jail, before he had gone to trial. We're almost done. We've got 41 calls left, I believe. Yeah, 41 calls left. So if you join the MAM Gossip group, you'll be able to go through... How many have we listened to? There's 58 episodes in there. So in each episode is about an hour long, of all the calls where you can hear Brendan from back in that time and know from that how innocent that kid is. We'll talk about that more on his birthday live that we do. So I thank you all for joining us today. Keep Brendan and Stephen and all the wrongfully convicted in your thoughts. Keep fighting. Keep advocating. Because we will here at Stephen Avery Project. And when anything becomes public, if there's any filing in the case, we'll bring it to you first here at Stephen Avery Project. Have a good weekend. Talk to you all soon. Investigation continues.